Bane is one of the guys in the mix you would think for the Commanders at 7,
Indeed.
looking for an impact defender. Another guy who a lot of people like, and I'm one of a lot of people, is David Bailey. Bailey's my favorite edge rusher in this class in terms of natural pass rushing ability. But it's fascinating because they're very different types of players. I look at Bane and I see a D tackle in the NFL. He's going to play edge a lot. I think really what he is a 5 tech and a 34, basically like a defensive end and a 3-4 front C. For Washington fans, I'm trying to think of who, like a Stephen Bowen played that role here, Adam Carricker, those types of guys, like bigger edges who could play in a 4-3 as a defensive end with their hand in the dirt, but not really a stand-up pass rusher like a David Bailey would be. But the reason I bring these two guys up, Danny, is Rueben Bain has 30 and 3/4 inch arms, supposedly. Now he's going to be remeasured at the combine. And one of the things floating around, Logan talked about this on a new episode of Take Command we just did, is if you're plugged in on the draft, it seems like maybe whoever measured his arms originally might have botched it a little bit, and his arms are going to measure. I don't think they've grown.
More normal.
Yeah. I don't think they've grown a bunch, I think maybe he got a bad measurement at 30 and 3/4 inches. But David Bailey's arms are supposed to be 34 to 35 inches. That's a massive difference in terms of length and keeping guys off of you at a position where using your hands and your leverage and pulling and throwing guys is important. But Adam Peters was actually asked about this. Arm length, does it matter? And your eyes light up a little bit as a Commanders fan when you see him answering this. The question wasn't Rueben Bain versus David Bailey, but you can kind of look into it a little bit with what he has to say about arm length. This was Peters today.
Yeah, evaluating the edge, just guys that, fit your scheme and your profile. And we have a new scheme this year with Durante. And so, but I think a lot of that stuff carries over. If you're a really good pass rusher, you're always going to, pass rush is going to weigh more than run defense, especially the way this league is. But, ideally you want Myles Garrett. That's who you want, but there's only one of those guys walking on the face of the earth. But a lot of those same traits, right? And, long, fast, explosive, can turn the corner, can finish, all those things. In terms of guys with shorter arms, and there's a few in this draft that are really, really good players, it's, arm length is, I can go into days on this arm length thing, because every time you measure somebody's arm, it could be 30, 31, 32, 33, just depending on who measures it. So you get a pretty good idea of how long their arms are with that, but you really, how well they play with whatever length they have. Some guys have shorter arms that play with great length and extension all the time. Some guys have really long arms that don't use their length as well. So, it's great to have that length, but it's also how they use it and how it comes out on the tape. And so some guys can excel with shorter arms by doing things differently, but, ideally you always want to have err on the side of a longer person, yeah.
I'm so immature. Halfway through that clip, I started just listening
just chuckle a little bit, yeah,
from a different perspective, right. And I'm like, man, if Darius wanted to edit this a little bit, he could really make this sound funny. I'm not giving you any ideas. We probably shouldn't.
Don't do that.
As we're talking about certain guys' length versus other guys' length, and how if you don't have the same length, maybe you could do certain things to
make up for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So I'm halfway through the clip, I'm
sitting there, don't laugh.
Like, this is dead serious. This is my job. We're talking about
we're working right now.
Rueben Bain's length versus David Bailey's length.
Stop it.
But anyway, on to the edge conversation here. So I hear him talking about that, and I go, okay, David Bailey's got the long arms and is the pass rusher. Rueben Bain's got the shorter arms and is a little bit more stout and kind of kick him inside type guy. It's a little bit of a what works for you. What do you want to be? I think of the Flores scheme, Danielle Hunter, some of these guys over the years, even Van Ginkel right now. Can I get a Van Ginkel arm length? Can I figure that out, please? I would think that a guy like him, he's always batting passes and jumping up and trying to intercept.
He might have 10-foot arms, as far as I'm concerned.
It feels that way. Yeah. But we might find out they're like 22 inches, or he's got the shortest arms in the history of the world. But I just generally, I don't know enough about this scheme yet or how they're going to do it to know what fits and what doesn't. I got to say, though, Danny, if you're asking me between a pass rusher who is a hard worker who's not very good against the run, like setting an edge, David Bailey, versus Rueben Bain, who is a pass rusher and a run stuffer, but not quite the same level of edge or rusher that David Bailey is, doesn't have the same bag of tricks, I'm going to go with the better pass rusher every single time. I have to.
I get it.
I want the best pass rusher possible, and that's David Bailey, 14 and a half sacks this season at Texas Tech.
Then Ginkle arm length listed here at 32.5 inches. So for whatever that's
okay,
worth.
so that's 2+ inches longer than Rueben Bain, which is a lot of inches.
Which is a massive difference if you're talking about it. Daniel Jeremiah's first sentence here on Rueben Bain. His game tape is littered with disruption, destruction, and dominance. You're not going to get me to say no. Now, if I had to take one or the other, I'm with you. I think Bailey's the best pure pass rusher in the class.
Where does DJ have Bain on his big board?
6th.
Where does he have Bailey?
I believe 3rd.
See, here is my question, and this is what I keep asking the smart people who cover the draft for a living when I talk to them. How do you view David Bailey as a run stuffer? If he is Dante Fowler and you have to hide him, that's a problem long term.
Yeah.
I don't think he is. I think he's kind of a badass. When I watch that guy, if you're talking about coming downhill on the backside in pursuit or doing things behind the play, he actually plays really hard and does some really good things in the run game. He's just not going to hold up. He's listed 250. I don't think he is, by the way. We'll see what he weighs in at the combine. But he's not, as a point-of-attack player, going to be like a Montez Sweat with his length, where he just is an action figure, you can't move off the ball. So it's more of a backside pursuer type guy who's scraping and coming down the line of scrimmage. But if he's a 5 or 6 out of 10 playing the run, and he's an 8.5 as a rusher, I'm going to take that over the other way around, where someone like Rueben Bain might, to me, I'm going to say is like a 6 as a rusher, but maybe he's a 7 or 8 as a run defender.
Yeah.
And you add up to the same score, but I am prioritizing pass rush. It's just so much more important to me.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. Again, you put a firearm to my head. It's Bailey over Bain, but it's not a huge amount, right? It's not an enormous amount of difference between me. Because again, I think Bain, even though the body type isn't ideal for the defensive end, he reminds me of kind of like a Richard Dent from back in the day. I know it's an old school reference, but a bigger bodied defensive end, I put that in quotation marks, where you can move him around a little bit and he's just going to beat the guy in front of him. He is so strong and so disruptive that I know it's not ideal. I want the prototype like everybody else. But I feel like Bailey holding up in the run game against like Iowa State, Colorado, BYU, Cincinnati, that ain't Sundays, man. That's Big 12 stuff.
It is not. I'm telling you, it's going to be a problem early next year.
And it's the thing that I worry about long term is, is he rendered irrelevant if he's chipped by a couple of big bruising tight end or an extra lineman on that side and the like. But he's the best pass rusher in this class for me. Pure one. I mean, again, the debates could be had between he and Arvell Reese and what they're going to turn into.
Reese better end up being that guy the way people talk about him.
But right now, this minute, I would say if you have to get a sack right now in week 1 of the NFL season coming up, who would you most like to pick to do that? Bailey's my answer.
And that's why I'm drafting.
And that's why I drafted him.
Of those guys. So you are going Bailey. I thought you've been Bane.
I love Bane. To me, the gap is really, really close.
So you're now Bailey.
Yeah, it's Bailey and by a whisker, and then
I'm surprised.
Just a little bit. I've always liked Bailey.
The length is not why. It's just the pass rushing credentials and ability. And I am in the minority on this, but I don't see Rueben Bain as a legitimate, like a true defensive end. To me, he's a defensive end in the way that maybe like John Allen would have been coming out or something like that. He was a
a certain kind. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But like you could play him outside in a 34.
Yeah, he's a bigger bodied, quote unquote, defensive end. But my thesis on him is I think it matters less now than it did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Like, what position do you play, young man? I'm a defensive tackle, defensive end. I think now, sometimes he's on the side with Frankie Louvu, who's now standing up. Who's the defensive end? Is it the guy that's on the edge? Does Louvu come? Does he back off? Or, what are we doing up there? He, to me, is a disruptive defensive lineman, and I care about that a lot.
Here's the comp would be Matthew Judon is listed at the same height and weight, 6'3", 275.
Is he really that big? I don't think of him that way.
I've never thought he was 275, but that's what he was listed at.
Okay.
So there's not a great example of these players, but there's a few of them, and that's where I think you add 12 or 13 pounds, you kick him inside, you can get him upfield.
Yeah.
By the way, pressure from the D-tackle position is more important than ever.
Yeah.
The 4 teams that did the best in terms of pressure rate from D-tackle last year, all 4 of them played in the AFC and NFC championship game. 2 of them obviously got to the Super Bowl, and 1 of them won the thing.